zones of initial evolution. Our years have spun out their tail as a spider. Chapter 1. The Scab, the Scale, and the Itch. The extreme form of power is all against one. The extreme form of violence is one against all. Hannah Arendt. I'd nearly forgotten the smell of cane fields burning. Fay away. Bill in the mouth of heaven. It was there but not there, like a fan in my head left on for years. Until walking the dog down Sunset, I saw this guy with a tremor and a shake settling down to panhandle, getting down with trouble, lips and cigarette fumbling in concentration, going down onto a dirty folded bed pad mat, down to the ground. He might deny it, but I know it's Bill, the confabulator of his backpack of solvents, the keeper of that trip's parabolic chemical lines of highs of digression and lows of dread and extremity in the extreme. There he was humbled in the hard, modern Los Angeles light. Someone had sprayed out large on the wall behind him, "God loves ugly." Time felt duplicitous, and the marine layer was low, the sun a spot of hazy luminescence, the sound too close, too gravelly, too strange. And a reflux taste from more than 40 years back came up on me in the bileful person of Bill, messing with my bourgeois soul sleep, a fucked up and scrofulous hard minion, an obscure specter of time's lassitudes, a rock in the river of chance. And I flashed on Bill up on those windy cliffs, bent and stiff, with the sea crashing below, with his hair gone all crazy, his mind amped up, going on about freebooting in the Tower of Power. He was a rash, outspoken, hairy-legged nutjob back then, driven wrathful by Bible camp and the military school pressure cooker, all provoking his own brand of apocalyptic antics. He'd been baptized in the waters of LSD, become a soldier of chaos. Now there he was, apart, invisible and ignored, out on the street in Hollywood, showing his time hard spent in erosion and friction, a bum with a capital B. Last thing I'd heard, he was 18 and had been sentenced to 25 years in penitentiary in North Carolina, where he was born and reared to be this now defunct weaponized prophet. He sat reading the concrete before him, shaking his head in the negative, mumbling out some private line of code, smoking, making a cloud of public privacy for himself. I said, "Bill," and he looked up at me with his grizzled right eye, beard and hair, woolly wild, sticking out from the center of his being, nose lips pouting out from there too, like knives. A man of the wide-open spaces, smelling of campfire, rolling in tremors, trying to focus on this apparition before him, cigarette askew, smoke in his eyes, out of focus, then in, then out again. Then, in some vague recognition, he drawls, "Fuck off," and back he goes to reading the concrete to himself, back to shaking his head in the negative. I stood there looking at him too long, a harsh reunion with the aqua abyss. I gave him $1, and he held the corner an inch from that one good scrunched-up eye, too blind to see if it was a 1 or a 20, but looking hard for his due, breathing with a snot whistle. I began to drift there for a second in that particulated mist, in that luminous microbial air that muffled the sound like soft new snow in the forest. That 40-day drift comes back up on me a lot like that, so every scratch on the pavement is too close and the air seems sluggish and claustrophobic, devolving down in its own eccentric cascade of neutrinos from some past gaseous climax in the rhythm of the universal stellar boil. Bill refused any recognition of our current impersonations or any comic interpretations of this very hard business before us. But shoes don't lie, they tell the pedestrian truths we must walk in. Expensive leather Hawaiian flip-flops flapping on my heels tell my story. how by a confidentiality agreement I've sublimated my small fuck you for all the lies and duplicities of society's facts of life, so I get the perfect shoe. But puffy, worn, oversized banana-colored running shoes with free still marked on the sole told me that Bill had no confidentiality. He'd made no agreement. The facts of life could go fuck themselves as far as he was concerned. He had not diminished his big hectoring fuck you for society at large, and society at large responded with a fuck you too, buddy, and stinky cast-off sneakers. Every scrap of shit in his shopping cart and every micron of caked dirt on his fucked up, stunted, furious Charlie Manson body all shouted together in unison, fuck you, at us overfed cattle of modernity lumbering across his patch of ground on the low, wide, concrete Californian plateau. But of course nobody was listening to him, and nobody had fucked off either. I see him on the move sometimes across that wide Kalahari, walking in a spectacle of struggle, negotiating the sidewalk with his cart of crap, forcing that wobbly wheeled cart up the curb ramps with difficulty, walking with his bizarre goose step, kicking out half sideways, chin obdurate, banging his heel down to the ground. The rebellious body must humiliate the contrary brain, that contrarily stops time in a moment of martial rectitude, like the guys at Lenin's tomb. Stopped, then his leg lurches forward, head rolling, eye bugged, spittle at the lip, the hand going crosswise in a spasmodic attempt to counterbalance. I gave this description to a doctor I walked the dog with sometimes, and he diagnosed it as successive strokes due to drug overdoses. Naming it felt like a bizarre treachery to this old comrade of the haze, a banalizing term for this particular end of the road. But in every dragging step there was a proud, indignant, adamant, insulted, and fixated fuck you. He was being the end in these end-time beginnings. But he wasn't talking about it. He was performing his limping ritual of the end. The whole of human flesh seems to be flooding into Los Angeles to where the end is manufactured, with the surfboards to ride it, the escape rockets to leave it, and the Twilight Time movies to dread it. A place where all the locals are perpetually fingering their phones, trying to prompt that final word. I saw Bill over and over and over, way beyond the odds, one among 70,000 sleeping rough in L.A., a spastic, phoneless, archaic man of the end, jolting me like once a week on our peculiar electric clock, sitting in his twisted lotus position on the stain-spattered sidewalk, on his pained little pad, like it was a bed of nails. His stink makes my dog leery. It's the same stink that gets all the dogs in the neighborhood barking when the untouchables come collecting bottles. It's that fermented outdoorsman smell of piss, cigarettes, dander, stale beer, and something more. Not the floral smell of fabric softener enveloping everyone else. His squinty eyes have the look of a habitué of that forgotten time stoppage and clutch slippage from down at the mouth of heaven. A perpetual transcendence uncorked, an odd demonic trance boomeranging around in my memory, disreal and ghost-like, coming up on me with the soft southeast wind from the moaning hole in the ozone where that wind must begin. Every time I see that doleful schlep, goose-stepping down Sunset, navigating that sea of unknowables, it reminds me of the rat holes of similitude and etheric transfictions that Bill, just by his presence, compels me to wrangle together, to reconstruct those old visions here with the cognitive gaps and leaps that still plague and enhance my life today. And if I forget to remember, I will awake in the night sometimes back down on that volcanic precipice, and I'll put my hand on her ass and recall that the battle is over. While Bill probably awakes likewise next to his own turd. If I persist in forgetting that old nether world, there is Bill again, sun-wizened skin, under a goofy red ball cap that some do-gooder stuck on his head a bit off kilter. Mornings I find myself, again and again and again, on a chair on wheels in my outdoor studio, unfinished commissions beside me, dog at my feet blinking in the sun, regenerating this vestigial tale between the spray-painted covers of my little gray notebook, calling out in my mildly hectoring tone, "Fuck you," while the neighbor's boombox blasts out the tuba and accordion music from a lost and golden age when there were no shopping centers in Mexico. Writing my story out in that golden land of trumpet, tuba, trombone, and clarinet, while Bill is limping down Sunset, back bent, face smooshed by 16,000 days on the road, and I quote to myself like Ishmael did, "And I only am escaped alone to tell thee." When I see Bill, I put my pocket-polished pearl of a coin in that caked gargoyle end-of-the-world hand of his, being careful not to touch any skin, and I say nothing, which sounds about right to both of us, I think.